Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm just in the process of letting people in. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm here today with Kate Collins, who is our division head for the upper school. And the plan for the morning is Kate is going to present for about 35 minutes. And thereafter, we'll have some time for questions. If there are questions that come up during the presentation, feel free to throw them in the chat. If I feel like I'm going to just stop Kate for a minute and ask that question, I can do it that way. Or we can at the end kind of turn off the presentation, all kind of see each other, raise our hands either physically or digitally, and kind of have more of a conversation. I wanted to let you know I knew you agreed to this when you logged on, but this session is being recorded. If you are uncomfortable in any way with that, feel free to turn off your camera and keep yourself muted. And so thank you so much. Kate Collins, welcome.
Thank you, Stacey. And again, please feel free. Being muted and even with your camera off is fine. For some reason, just even seeing your name in a blackened out box is more helpful to me than seeing being on a webinar where I see no one and have no idea who is around me. So I feel even more connected by just seeing your name in a little black box. So welcome and thank you for joining us today. I know that Charlene and Cece have been working with many of you in your exploration of what's next for your child. I know, having worked closely with upper school students in that process, that is, there are so many questions that you have. And if one of those questions is, what is the upper school and how might that work for my child? That is what the goal of today is supposed to be, is to share an overview of the upper school, give you that kind of answer those questions, and then provide you with the next steps for exploring the upper school for your child specifically. So the way that I structure that is actually through, I guess I also want to confirm that my screen is still shared and all you see is this presentation and not like texts from my son's babysitter. Okay, great.
You're perfect.
She's actually not texting, but I feel like, just confirming. That's great. So I actually structure this presentation around these question words. I think that students and parents, often when we're thinking about the questions that we have, it is what we're teaching kids, kind of who, what, why, how, when, where, all of those. So it really seems like a great way to structure the day. So what we're going to spend time talking about is the who, the what, the why, the how, and then leave time for questions. So in part of the who is even just kind of who am I? So I am the division head of the upper school, and Kate Collins is to the upper school as Allison West is to the middle school. That is my role here. I am leading this adult team that you see on the screen. The reason why this kind of who's who, so this is actually the easiest question to answer for you. You already know Carroll teachers. So you know our commitment to professional development, you know our teacher commitment to neurodiverse learners, you understand our teachers. So while these are different people, I think part of this is that we're really not that different. We are just kind of different people that are doing the work that you already know is working for your child and has been a part of your child's life. There's something that even the students share that the transition here with the faculty and staff feels easy a little bit, because there is this idea that they know their teachers understand who they are, even though there's new people. So this is the faces of the upper school. We are as you might know, but I think I'm going to go with the idea that maybe you don't. The upper school isn't on the Wayland campus. It is a beautiful building. It's about 25,000 square foot former home that has been converted now into our classrooms. We are 49 students this year. 26 are in the 9th grade. 23 are in the 8th grade. Next year's 9th grade will be made up of the 23 8th graders that we currently have. And any students who come to us from Lincoln, this year we have 16 of our 26 are students from Lincoln. And then if we have applicants that apply to come to the 9th grade at Carroll, that is also a cohort that makes up what our 9th grade is. So our campus, if you've ever been here for any sports, that's the campus that we're on. So here's the what. So we are, and for 9th grade in particular, I think the most important part here is that this is high school. Our students are looking for a transition to high school, and that's exactly what they're going to get. So is it a 4 full year graduation diploma high school experience? No, but it's a year of 9th grade credits to prepare you and to transition on into your next kind of forever high school, is what one student said to me the other day, like, well, when I find my forever high school. So we are high school. We're really thinking about this of being, it is a transition to high school, and at what I like to call a lowercase transition. So many of our students are thinking about that next school as this large jump, and we want it to feel that way, and yet give them the opportunity to have that comfort of still being in a Carroll environment. So as far as what we're doing, we really are in this Venn diagram of thinking about the Carroll academic program, the core values of being a good human in a global society, and also our commitment to DEI and justice. So a lot of identity work through the high school years is foundational in the 9th grade year. So our humanities curriculum is rooted in both kind of understanding your own identity and the identities of others, in order to kind of format what is really the rest of high school, regardless of which high school your child continues at. So much of high school is learning and understanding yourself and others. And that comes on pretty strong throughout the whole curriculum here in the upper school, within a purposeful way. And that really is the kind of overview of like what we're doing, and the how we're doing it is actually where we get into what looks maybe like a little bit of a complicated slide, but it's the best way to visualize what I'm sharing next. So we are, your students take in the same academic program as what they have their 4 content area courses, and they are still continue on with a focus area class. For many students, it moves into a intensive writing focus area, really thinking about connecting all the skills they've been learning at Carroll through the years into the high school level writing requirements. The writing commitment in our program is across all of our courses. We are thinking about writing across the curriculum and using the writing strategies to write in all of the classes. So even our geometry students right now are writing and working more with word problems and also the academic writing in mathematics, in the mathematical thinking skills through that. So through this, we have our executive functioning skills, being more independent. So taking students in that NCLU programming and moving them into the independent level of that. So we have what we call INCLU, which is independent NCLU, where 9th graders work to transition into the place where they are doing that independently, because it's going to be something that will likely be required of them after Carroll. And we try to get them there as quickly as possible. Working on more sophisticated writing. So in that actually includes the sentence level writing as well, right through research papers, lab reports, literary analysis. Our 9th grade English class is an English literature course. They are all of the work is through novels and high-end 9th grade and beyond text, and really in that more of a feeling more literature based than coupled with the ELA that they're used to, but in that literature focus of bridging that. Our expressive language skills, of course, so active in deliberate class discussions, learning how to be active listeners. Many of our classrooms are set up in what, while they're not actual Harkness tables, we are thinking about this kind of shape and the way we're putting kids in the room together to prepare them for some of the many of the independent schools that are Harkness modeled schools. And then also just that we are providing students up high school academic credits. So the courses they're taking ninth grade physics, obviously their math course, and their modern world history course, which is these courses were structured and designed based on a few local independent and public schools and what the course offerings would be to ensure that students had transferable credits, regardless of where they head off to. The same is true in PE and art and in health class as well. The social emotional piece too, we are really looking at this concept of the transition to high school, talking about high school from day one. My first talk with ninth graders is, you are in high school. Welcome to high school. The increase in homework demands, the increase on their expectations around self-advocating for themselves independently, initiating emails with teachers, just checking their email, for instance. Some students kind of forget they have an email. We are constantly, that is a lot of what we're doing, is creating those moments. Part of that too, for transition, many of our students that are heading, really, no matter where they're going to go next, they're going to start having blocks of their day that are not scheduled. So we will look at school schedules for some of the schools we're heading to, and they can have 10, there's one school that I know very well, actually, they can have up to 14 free periods in a week. So when they leave a school that there's been 0 free periods, which is most kids have middle school experiences where they don't have time for choice. In the upper school, we're also giving students that opportunity to have a chance to make a choice. And what choice are you going to make? So we have what we call X block, which is often a study hall period where students are thinking about, what should I do right now? Can I play outside? Like, can I play basketball? Can I play football? Or do I have something that's more important to do? Do I need to see a teacher? How do I make that happen? And we're scaffolding those kind of internal questions that we're hoping they will have and use for choosing what to do in any given moment. And as any of you that went to high school, which I'm guessing it's all of us, there's a lot of choice in high school. What should I be doing right now, and how should I use my time? Even as an adult professional, I'm constantly asking myself, what do I have to do right now? Not what do I want to do, right? But what do I have to do? And for some of our kids, they're not there yet. They have to be managed. And we're really working on that skill, and really identifying that as a discrete skill of a successful high school student, making the right choice in a given moment. And sometimes the right choice is a rest. Sometimes it is, I'm going to go to bed early tonight, so I should do my homework right now, because that's important for my body and my wellness. So that a lot of that is happening in our program. The piece here, the writing piece, for so many Carroll students, the years have been dedicated to fluent reading. And of course, that is incredibly important. In the opportunity to focus on writing outside in the focus area may have been not available to them yet. So many of our ninth graders that come from Lincoln are in a writing focus area, and maybe coupled with comprehension and fluency, but we really add writing into really everyone's focus area. And the flexibility to move between focus areas given our size. So we have some students who might do OG in the first half of the year, and then maybe move into a writing focus area for the second half. That happens. We also have some students who will do a writing focus area all year, and we'll do OG in their flex block. So the upper school has some structures that are a little bit different from the middle school, given our population, and that's one. And then there are some students that we just know OG will not be a part of what's next, and we just need to not stop and keep it going. And then we have them be in a flex for writing. So the writing piece is a part of everyone's journey through ninth grade, knowing how much of the high school expectation is in writing. So I guess the why. So there's a lot of what and who and maybe even the how, but the why really is that we are thinking in the upper school while we're thinking about GEC everywhere. what the upper school is thinking about explicitly in the 9th grade is that getting that transition to high school. So we are kind of out of the gate working with families on what are they thinking for in the same way that you're thinking about that now, what are we thinking about next year? Some of our students are actually a little bit more able to think about that because they know it has to end. There is not a chance to stay at Carroll next year. They have to go. So they're engaged in the conversation, potentially a little differently than they were last year when I think some students feel a little hesitant about going. Some parents feel a little hesitant about going. We're in the early days of 9th grade. Students are engaged in this conversation about where do I want to be next year? What do I need to get out of this year to make it kind of worth being here and excited about being here? So that transition is that it feels new. There are new there definitely an increase in academic demand of high school. There are new adults to get used to. There are new students to meet and get to know. So there is a lot of new, even though they're here under the umbrella of Carroll School and feeling that connection, belonging to this community. And there is enough that feels new and exciting about a transition. And that's something that we really need to make happen for our students. And we know it's important in that 9th grade. I spent 11 years at an independent high school. I am a high school educator. I actually had to get used to working with 8th graders, to be totally honest. That's my learning is in who are these 8th graders. I'm actually probably more at risk for treating the 8th graders like they're seniors in high school than I am treating the 9th graders like they're middle school students. I think our kids feeling the independence and the freedom of being in high school is really important. So their choice, their free time, we have a 45-minute lunch that is all purposeful, again, for them to make choice, think about what they should be doing, where should they be, having a little bit more freedom on not feeling maybe as kind of supervised. I mean, of course they're supervised, but it feels like a step back in that supervision or what kids saying, I don't feel babysat in the upper school. They're not being babysat. They are being encouraged to be independent, make good choices, and learn how to manage themselves when there isn't an adult staring at them every second. So part of what we're doing in the house, so our students are getting, 9th grade students are getting between an hour and a half and 2 hours of homework. I know that sounds bananas. I am in like at odds with myself about saying that we give this much homework, but the reality is that is what's happening and what we're preparing our students to do when they leave our environment. So to not prepare them in that way and to kind of battle the homework expectation is actually not preparing them. So in some ways, this has to be a top-down change, and we're not going to be the place that helps make that change. What we can do is help make that change by ensuring our kids are prepared to exist and succeed and thrive in that environment. So we are scaffolding that. We are creating the structures and building towards that. But the stamina to be able to do homework and sustain homework for that long is definitely something that we are, in having students see that it is meaningful and that it impacts their experience and their outcomes. So we also are thinking about classes for many of our students. Again, depending on what is next, we're looking at class sizes from a perspective of where are you headed. So our history and physics classes are actually purposefully larger to kind of start getting students back into that size classroom that they will see at the local independent and public high schools. So a physics class of 8 students might feel really wonderful here, but it doesn't really mimic what they're heading to. So 12 to 14 is pretty common in many of the independent schools in the area. So we really are trying to take moments where we get and put students in that size room for that learning environment, to kind of give them back to, kind of start stretching them in class size. And we are still that explicit gecking around students' area that they most need. So we are looking still obviously at flex block focus area, and giving students hours a day of their explicit instruction around the areas that they are, looking or needing to grow the most. And that's an evolving question. So we are constantly looking, what do they need now, and making the changes as they have to happen. And it is a year of high school course credits. So we are, have transferable high school transcripts. Our ninth grade transcript looks a little different than what you've seen. Our reports look a little different, and it's because they are being sent, from our program into high schools to be, obviously used towards the high school graduation requirement. So the other how, this is our schedule. It's actually a little bit, it's mostly like the middle school schedule. The biggest difference is our lunch block is longer. Our NCLU is shorter. That's on purpose. We are looking to have students be more independent in that time and not get as much work, kind of homework done in that time, but plan and get started. In our flex block, the rest of the day we have 55 minutes a day of break or lunch. We have clubs during lunch. We have an active student council, and that works on providing students with some social experience during lunch that is for students who need more of a kind of guiding hand in what to do with 45 minutes. For some kids, it's awesome. For some kids, it's, can be stressful to think about what should I do for all that time. So we have clubs that last each day, and we do have a 50-minute block that rotates throughout the day. As far as our executive functioning skills, we are working to build towards independence. So this is our planner. It is a remote planner. And what students are, it's really scaffolding the EF skills that are, long-term. We're looking to live in the adult brain. And as probably most of you know, they're not really ready to live in the teenage or even the college age brain yet. Not ready. Frankly, I have two brothers in their 40s and they don't do it yet either. So it's, it's not for everyone. But the idea that there are tools and techniques to support those skills and that you can do independently. So our planner is remote. What students do each day is they're thinking about, what do I have to do? How long do I need to do it? When is it due? And then when am I going to do it? So what we're looking for in this independent NCLU is for students to think about their day, to take their homework and assign the time that they're going to get that work done. So they're asking themselves each afternoon at 3 o'clock, what do I have to do? How long do I think it's going to take? And then they're assigning and thinking about what they have to do the rest of the night. We have a lot of athletes that are having, or an artist that have evening commitments, even just the random, tonight's grandma's birthday party, right? So I got to do some homework during my lunch block in order to have time tonight. So there's a lot of that questioning and like, what do I have to do and when am I going to do it? That we are looking to internalize. That really we want a high school student, a successful high school student is going through their day, asking themselves that pretty much constantly. What do I have to do and when am I going to do it? And to internalize those two questions is a large part of our independent experience around the EF skills. In that, the planner, I actually just sent it off to students that are at a public high school. I got an email from the director of their support program saying, what is this planner? Can you please send it to me? I have 2 kids who are saying they will not use the planner that we have. The irony here is that we actually do send all of the kids, we kind of make this kind of to-go folder of all of the things they used in the upper school, and we send it off with them for high school, and they don't have it anymore, but I'm not shocked. So, but it is living, it is now in the hands of their support person at their local high school. So another piece here is, so the piece of the independence. So for so many of our kids, even ones that have been at Carroll for a while, they still feel like school is something that's happening to them, right? They feel probably a little bit more involved, but it still feels like my parents and my teachers, and I'm just kind of this like bystander, right? So the 9th grade year is really looking to say like, nope, this is your education. This is your experience. You're going to get out of this what you can put in. And part of how we do that is through this, actually, what is it? It's called a student-parent communication. We just had our first round last week. They're called UP forms. And what it stands for is update and plan. And what happens is every few weeks, the teachers write a comment, of what's going on in class for your child. They give the current grade, and if there's any missing assignments, or what we call a not yet, which I think you might have heard of those before. Meaning you've attempted it, but it's not quite done, or not to the standard that the teacher's looking for. The student actually sees this first, which I just did this with a group the other day. They were shocked. They were 8th graders. They couldn't believe that their parents had not yet seen this. Almost all of the students then have this chance to, and they all did it, write a comment in the student note section. Many kids that explained something that was in the up form from the teacher, and that was before it's sent home. So, and I explained to them, like, this is, most kids actually were I had 5 students in my room, and they couldn't believe that they were seeing teacher notes before their parents saw them. And that actually, to me, is what it's all about. There should be no, to be able to engage with your child at home about something that he, she, or they already know about, because it happened first with the child and then the parent, is really the beginning of that independent journey of them taking ownership of their education. Everyone is on their own track on that ownership. But we are trying to really work with kids to become, and even just be able to reflect, like, from what I read, what can I do on their own? And honestly, what we see when we leave kids alone with these comments and what they can write about what they're going to do differently is pretty remarkable. I actually think that when I get involved and give them an idea, it's like short selling what they're capable of. Like, they come up with better ideas and responses to their comments than if I get involved. I kind of workshop their ideas, but it is, when I learned about this, when I started here 2 full school years ago, and this, I've never seen anything like this in all my years, 20 years in a school. And it is a lot of work for the teachers, but it is a remarkable student tool. It feels like parent communication, but it is so much more than that. It is students taking ownership and being involved in a way that many kids have not been involved. And it's also preparing them to do that. They're also advocating. I've seen students in the group I had an 8th grader write back to the teacher to basically disagree with the comment, to be like, I don't think, and it was wonderful. We worked on how to write an email when you're going to ask to talk about something that you don't agree with. And actually it comes to be that it was true. That was not accurate. The child actually advocated into an edited comment, which was awesome. So we have, and that's actually a student from years ago, but this is not even that student, it's just a picture. But I had a student my first year that said to me, and I wrote it down, and I'm really glad I did. He said, I was worried this was going to be more of middle school Carroll. It's not. This is high school. I have more freedom and have way more work. And then he said, can I be honest? And then he said, okay, I didn't think I was going to like it this much. And this was a student who actually had been here. He was a BR, the kid who said this. I taught him in focus area, and he kind of dragged his feet into the place and had what he would identify, and I think a lot of people would identify as his kind of best year at Carroll, and left just kind of wrapping up his time here in a really positive and independent way. We're almost at questions. So really the big question that some people ask is kind of like, now what? If you are interested in exploring this, what do I do now? So Cece and Charlene are still your kind of main point people. At this point, sharing interest with them is a great first step if you haven't already done that. We will then schedule for the family, caregivers and me to meet to talk about the upper school and your child. And that's about 20 minutes. I actually have a link to use to schedule and find a time. I think that back and forth trying to find a time that works is, I don't know about you guys, those are my worst email. I hate those emails, are terrible. They just go back and forth. So I created a calendar to help with that, with a lot of availability. So after that meeting, either your child can come over, we will set up a visit for your child to come over and spend some time at the upper school during the school day. They'll come over in groups of 2 or 3. We don't ever have a student have to come alone. And I think it would feel a little overwhelming. They would stick with that pair from the middle school. The other option is that doesn't work for all kids. Some students would rather come in that kind of out of school hours with their parent. So another option is to visit the school as a family outside of the academic day, or even during the academic day, if that can be arranged with the middle school through the family. And then the decision is actually confirmed in, through your secondary school advisor. So reaching out to Charlene or Cece, if and when you've made the decision that you will commit to the upper school. And at that point, it really is, we are at open enrollment, meaning we are enrolling and applying, the re-enrollment process, the same way that you did, moving from 7th to 8th grade, and that decision to go from 8th to 9th grade. I then celebrate your child's decision in what feels a lot like an admissions decision. I send them the swag bag that they get from, other schools. They get an upper school hoodie, they get a t-shirt, they get a backpack. They got maybe too much, actually. I think I might have overdone it. Charlene, you could let me know what you think about that, but we do celebrate that. I deliver it to them at homeroom or NCLU one day to welcome them. I write a letter that feels like an admissions acceptance letter. It really is we are saying we like you and we want you to stay, right? And that's it's a little different than congratulations, you've been accepted, but it is definitely we want you to be with us and we're so happy that you're going to do that. And it is also for the students who are, around that time, they're going to be seeing that happening for students at other schools. And it is a pride in making this choice. We've been doing that for 2 years. And Charlene and Cece, you can maybe add in on this. I think it has absolutely shifted some of that, the excitement about this being a choice that is honestly, I think I know is a great one, and one that we want kids to feel really good about. Okay, I think
perfect. Yes. Actually, one of the questions that came in on the chat, I'm just going to open this back up, was about the process. And so just to kind of reiterate that you would speak first to Cece or Charlene, and then you would get a link to a calendar to schedule a visit with Kate for you and your child. You'd go on a tour. You do not have to use Ravenna. I just want to make that clear. We shortcut the process. There's not a lot of essay writing. We actually know a lot about the Lincoln 8th graders already, which is fantastic. I guess one question sometimes is every 8th grader in Lincoln a candidate for the upper school? And I will say mostly yes. And like everything at Carroll, everything is a conversation about really what's best for your child. Kate mentioned that we had 16 students go over last year from the 8th grade over to the 9th grade. The year before, I think we had 20, we had something really big, that kind of COVID year, really, really big. One question we often get is about, is there just endless space over there? And so I would say we always want to make it work for everyone, and we have space constraints. So I would say if you're really interested and you do your interview and you're pretty sure you want to go there, I might commit. I might do it if you're really sure. If you're not, can I guarantee there's space? Not 100%. We always try and make it work. And we've got a building and a certain number of teachers. So that's what I could say about that. We got a question about whether 9th graders go on to regrade for 9th grade or whether they go to 10th grade. Okay, you want to talk? Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. So I actually was the other piece that I was going to add, Stacey, and it actually does pivot nicely into that question. So this is my 3rd year with students out of the middle school to the upper school, and that I did share kind of a global why. I think it's also important to know that every kid, every family has a unique why on why they're coming to the upper school. I think there's the big picture why. There are some students that the why, actually this year, I think we have a more diverse why than maybe ever before. And that we have students who know they want to reclass. They are younger, or frankly, we have some students who are athletes who know they want to reclass in some schools. And that doing a reclassing year here will offer them that ninth grade experience in that adjustment to then bring those skills into another ninth grade transition year, and give them that like kind of 2 years of entry point into a community. Our students absolutely do not need to do that. In fact, most of the ninth grade graduates from last year went on to 10th grade. We have students who are applying in 10th grade and then in June reaching out to the school they're heading to and asking to go to to reclass. Students on their own making that decision, they'd like to do that. And frankly, it really is a unique and family decision. That is one that the placement, both the upper school placement person, Francie Fenton, the placement person that you work with in the 8th grade, and even me are involved in kind of thinking about what's best for your child. As far as, is it harder to apply as a 10th grader? So that is a school kind of depending on the school. There are some schools where that's maybe not the case. While there's fewer spots, there's also fewer applicants, right? So it all depends on the institution and the attrition from the years before. I came from a K through 12 independent school right outside of Boston, and the attrition alone, and then the planned growth for the 10th and 11th grade opened up many, many spots. So at this school, I think we had as many as 30 seats in the 10th grade, and would have the percentage of acceptance was actually higher. Your chances were better in the 10th grade at that school because of the volume of applicants for 9th. So it really does depend, and it's part of the conversation. What I can say is that we had 27 graduates of the 9th grade last year. And I can say with confidence that the work with Cece, Charlene, me, Stacy, and placement, everyone arrived at the place that they should be, and feel really good about. I guess whether it was 9th or 10th grade.
Yeah, and the point I would add is, and these conversations are good to happen, but it's also sometimes if you're going to be seeking tuition support of any kind, any sort of financial aid, any sort of scholarship, it's important to sort of have that conversation about the allocations that are available in 10th grade versus 9th grade, because some schools have very different age budgets for those grades. And again, we don't want economics to drive which grade your child ends up in, but I think it's good to have some clarity around that conversation in the beginning of your process with those schools. Also kind of touching upon tuition support. If you are someone who's receiving tuition support here at Carroll, you can expect that you would continue to receive tuition support if you were to have your child attend the upper school. Yeah.
Thanks, Stacy. I wanted to add too that the open conversations. I'm Charlene. You might see 2 Charlenes on the screen. I have a feeling that Miss McNally is named Charlene Kmetz too, but that the schools welcome and appreciate transparency in terms of these open conversations. So don't feel that you should hold back in asking that question about a 10th grade entry point versus a 9th grade entry point versus numbers. And if they don't know the numbers yet, they can get back to you, but it's nice to have that discussion because they may even call you up and say, since you're open to this, this is what we're finding. So I just wanted to add that. So thank you, Stacy, for bringing that up.
So Jean.
Thanks you guys for doing this. This is so helpful. So is this something you guys would recommend that, because I listened to this presentation, I'm like, who wouldn't go on to Carroll 9th? This is amazing, right? Is this something that you would have a conversation with, or even go as far as applying to a secondary school and then saying, and if your child gets accepted, saying, thanks so much, but we'll see you in a year and then go to Carroll Ninth? Like, I'm not sure. Do you go through the motions of applying, getting accepted, and then, air quotes, deferring, or is every school strategy different if Carroll Ninth is sort of your preference?
I'm happy to begin the conversation on that. And the experience I've seen with families is that it really, very rarely can you defer. I will add that. In secondary schools, you will have to reapply. However, if they've loved you the first year, they're most likely going to love you and your child the second year. What I would say is it's very, and anyone please jump in, Cece, Stacy, Kate, it really is family dependent in terms of that decision as to whether you want to go through the entire process and see what the outcome is and make the decision. We have a number of families who do the research phase, they do the interviewing phase. And I had many families last year who were on the cusp of hitting the button on the applications and then said, you know what, this is what we know we want to do and it's right for our students. So we're going to, hold off here, but now we know the direction we're heading the following year. So that's just one example of maybe making the decision, but going through the process and doing a lot of the research steps this year. And then we did have some families who did go through the process and then ultimately, I think in their heart of hearts, knew that the benefit of another year at the upper school was just going to have a stronger entry point for their student. But feel free to jump in. Anyone to add to that.
I have and again, I'm still in my kind of early year. I guess I'm officially a junior here, right? Third year.
Your third first year, as you like to say.
Yeah, my first year. I like litmus tests on like kind of like what could work, what would be an indication for a family, right? And one, and again, I have exactly 1 year of data. So just understand that this is not time tested for very long. But last year, the essay, right? So the essay requirement in an application process, there were some students who just, their ability to even be a part of that was really, they struggled a lot with just kind of wanting to do it. And that, for some families that I talked with, was part of their idea that maybe they really aren't ready to go and kids can't say it, right? And Charlene, cut me off. If I'm getting this totally wrong, feel free. But that litmus test of that independent kind of essay writing around the application essays can be an indicator, especially given our focus on writing here in the upper school. We, for our kind of in a little bit of a different way, the upper school's placement work with me around writing, we have a Google Classroom. They have we scaffold the essay through their the writing program they're using. It's all independent, but we're mostly because they are, it's time. These essays they have to get done. They're independent, and I had parents last year being like, I can't believe they wrote an essay. Like the year before, they weren't even willing to read the question, right? The kid would not even look at it without the parents insist, forcing them to sit at the table. And so that, for what that's worth, again, very few data points on this. I think many of our kids that's with support. They love the essays. They're reflective. They are obviously in a wonderful writing program in the middle school and doing that work. So it's not a foolproof litmus test, but it is one that for some families was just a clear, and then in some ways, then also that goes to, should you put them through all of that work if they're not, right? That effort is mighty, and to do it again, if kind of directions are pointing at upper school, giving them that year to even just kind of take a big deep breath through this 8th grade year to know they're kind of good to go for next year. I do think that was also part of the sell on kind of earlier commitment, is to not go through it twice.
I'd like to add to that. And I think that Kate is spot on. If your student is happily engaged in the process, that's a very good sign that they are interested and will go on to the next step. So you know your family, you know your child, and trust your instincts on that. The other part is the schools love our Carroll kids. Charlene and Francie and I just, we've been visiting with a lot of schools, but we also just did a whirlwind tour of 5 schools in 2 days. It was fabulous speed dating. And we got to see quite a lot of our kids, and the admissions offices and the teachers and the coaches were so happy to see us and to learn how are things going at Carroll, and how many kids and families will come and see us. They love our Carroll families, they love our Carroll kids, and they're not looking for a reason to say no. So if you go through the process and then ultimately you choose Carroll Upper School, they know that it's a thoughtful process and that you have really good reasons. So if you communicate with them and you let them know, and all our families have such beautiful manners and great communication skills. If you keep that going, then next year when you come back, they are going to be happy to see you once again. So remember, it is about you, and it's about your child and your family, and making the best decisions around that. And the schools, I'll just bookend it. They love our Carroll kids, our 8th graders and our 9th graders. And Charlene and Francie and I, we have the best job. We get to see the kids here at school and then out of school. And wow, they are impressive. So
Thank you. So Heather, I think you have your hand up.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Yeah, sorry, I can't have my video on here, but so I had a question. We just went to our first tour last week. We went to Landmark. We actually saw, I think, like 4 other Carroll families at Landmark. And one thing that struck me is Landmark seems in some ways very much the same as Carroll, very tiny classes, very individualized, very, very, very supportive. But then listening to what you guys said about the 9th grade at Carroll is much more kind of preparing them for the next step, slightly bigger classes, and all the other things that go with that. So I guess, how do we know if our child is ready to like if they really, no kidding, need like a Landmark level of Carroll level of support all through high school? And I don't know which is better to prepare them for college. So that was a bit rambling, but any thoughts are welcome.
No, and Heather, that actually, Stacy, were you pointing to me for that? So I've actually worked at both schools. I
was pointing.
Actually, at this point, I was at Landmark longer than I've been at Carroll, but it was years ago, but I'm still quite connected with that community. So you're right. And really the difference, while we are similar in so many ways, the kind of one of the fundamental differences I would say is that it's exactly what you identified. The Landmark Upper School program is a destination to complete the high school experience, where the Carroll 9 is potentially leading to a destination of Landmark. We do have 9th graders who will either don't feel quite ready to board at Landmark for high school, or feel like there's a chance they're not quite sure if they need Landmark or not. So what 9th grade here can do is really kind of answer some of those questions on, is there another year of Carroll that maybe takes Landmark off the table in a more clear way, I guess. And then again, there are students who, after a 9th grade experience, whether they are a Lincoln to Upper School student or a Wayland to Wayland student, which is our new 8th graders, that do continue on to 10th grade at Landmark. But I think it can kind of, it provides a year kind of to pause that conversation and continue that skill building with the focus on prep for making the choice of, and that focus on skill building in a way to maybe give them some more choice on where. And it is, again, it can be likely for any student that the choice is still very strongly a Landmark is what's best. But I think there were some students who actually thought it was going to be Landmark, and we actually found them in a more moderate setting after an upper school year. So there's that, maybe those kids who are a little bit on the line of, is it a comprehensive setting or is it a moderate? And we're really, could teeter in either direction. And the 9th grade year gives some more information and some more data.
Yeah, that's
Charlene,
really
I'm looking for you right now for did I get it right?
I'm going to go to Eduarda in just a second. I was going to make this final point, which is that, and I think this says a lot more about the kind of students that are coming in and coming out of the upper school, which is that historically, we used to send a lot of kids to Landmark from the upper school, and more sometimes than even the Lincoln 8th grade. Over time, it's become less and less. I mean, we still send kids from the upper school to Landmark, but I think that the upper school itself has built out the programming, becoming a bigger program that can serve the majority of the Lincoln 8th graders, whether they are destined for Landmark or whether they are destined for Beaver or Proctor or Brimmer. Eduarda, I'm going to go to, go ahead, Charlene.
I just want to add one more thing is that I recall, a few years ago, a lovely student who he knew his dream was to go to Landmark. However, he loved Carroll so much, and he knew that a year of growth in terms of maturity and just skill refinement would set him up for better success as a Landmark student. So although his trajectory and his dream stayed the same and he's there and doing great, he knew that the year at Carroll was just going to, again, set him up for success. So I do think that can still be your chosen destination and feel it in your heart and have that year at Carroll that is still beneficial. Or you can choose to go right there. As Stacy and Kate and Cece have said, it really is there's not a wrong answer to it. It's really just an individual journey. And we can talk about that with any of the families. So thank you for that time.
Eduarda, hello.
Good morning. My question is, if at this point that your child is going to be going to upper school, is this the right time? Is it a different application? Or is it the same process that we've been doing it for the past few years?
So very similar, Eduardo. So what you would do is you would speak with Charlene or Cece, and then you would be given a link to a calendar to schedule some time with Kate when you and Leah can go over and have a visit, whether as a family or individually. And then you can continue the conversation. You don't have to go through the Ravenna, and the re-enrollment process would be exactly the same. So it's sort of it's a watered down application process. It's more about everybody getting to know each other.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So we have time for maybe another question or two. What's on anybody's mind? I think we can cover some of the things, Kate. We can talk maybe a little bit more about the specials and the after school and some of the non-academic pieces in case people are interested.
Of course. So our after school programming is part of the middle school program. So Coach Kometz, who oversees our after school, is also working in, engaging our upper school students. I like to identify some of our 9th graders as like the ringers on his sports teams. We had some pretty high 9th grade athletes. We're tossing onto some teams and then same that we're kind of transporting kids to the middle school for the after school experiences that are available there. Our 9th grade, or many of our 9th graders actually do some level of our after school study program, in that it is supervised, kind of what feels more like open campus. So we have our 4-year, for instance, has some high top tables, kind of purposely designed to look a little bit like a student center. It's not anything like some of the schools you're going to tour, but it is still kind of mimicking that. So in that study hall time, they can make a choice on like, where are they going to sit that works for them. So we have kids who are sitting at a high top table in a 4-year, and when they're doing their work and able to get it done, they kind of earn the right to be there. They're not being supervised in such a way that's saying like, this is your desk, you must work here. So that the culture on the 9th grade study hall after school is actually probably one of the biggest differences of the after school. Our multis this year are actually in 5-week rotations with a in residence teacher from the middle school. So for the past 5 weeks, we've had Alyssa DePaulo working with our students in PE, and Josh Mulready, the Fab Lab teacher, will be here for the next 5 weeks. So we do a rotation through the multis. That is, frankly, to be fully honest, that kind of transitions each year based on like what is the staffing and the needs. Ultimately for 9th grade, the most important piece for me is that half credit of PE and that half credit of art, whether it's performing or visual, for those transferable credits. So that's where the big difference between multis in the 9th grade and multis in middle school.
Thank you so much. So we're in our final kind of just few minutes. We can give you back 3 minutes of your day, or if anyone has anything else. No. All right. So just to reiterate, if you're interested in thinking more about this, please talk with Charlene and Cece about it. They can help get you set up with Kate so you and your child can learn more about the program. Thank you so much. If you know of anyone who didn't get to be here today, we did record it and we will post it to the website, so it will be available.
And I did, for anyone here who knows, I actually did just share the link to that calendar. I still be in touch with Cece and Charlene, but to take them off the need to send that link, if you'd like to get ahead and schedule with me, feel free to use the link I just chatted. It should open up a calendar of availability.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful
Thank you,
day.
Kate.
Take care.